Welcome back to Goebbelization. Part 2. Continuing with the endless ways the mainstream media repeatedly brainwashes the masses and spreads endless propaganda to divide our country. We have covered just some of the lies they have made about President Trump, including but not limited to the endless Russian hoax, the intentional and dangerous race baiting they do, as well as their continuous lies and selective reporting when it comes to immigration. Next up, COVID. One of the biggest misinformation campaigns ever centralized and spread to the world, and we still haven't learned the whole truth. We were lied to repeatedly about this pandemic that cost the lives of millions. I am doing a separate video on the insurmountable misinformation that was spewed to us, including the downplaying of natural immunity, the effectiveness of masks, the irreparable damage done, and whether it was even necessary when it came to the closing down of our schools, the effectiveness and probable damage of the vaccines themselves, and many other untruths that were told to us. But for this video, I focus on two in particular that are hardly ever talked about. The first amazing farce that they hammered on endlessly, and we pretty much accepted, was that you could go to your local Walmart, Costco, or other big corporate department chain once a week, but somehow you couldn't go to the voting station one damn time a year to vote. This changed the way we voted, where states changed laws months before the election, extended dates to receive ballots, and allowed mail-in voting in mass numbers in 2020, something the American people didn't vote for. Of course, these were the same people who argued that you couldn't go to your local church, but somehow said it was perfectly safe to be shoulder to shoulder without masks on the streets to protest against social injustice. The other, of course, was the origin of the pandemic, where those who insisted it came from the Wuhan lab in China were silenced and labeled as conspiracy theorists, which of course most experts now agree that is much more likely than not exactly where it came from. We are likely only scratching the surface on the revelations of this sham, as well as the cover-up, and we can only hope that the American people get the complete and unfiltered truth. New Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. seems determined to get to the bottom of it and should get some much-needed support from a certain senator so that perhaps someone can be held accountable. Here is looking at you, Mr. Fauci. Your auto pen pardon or not. The free and fair election of 2020. The claim that the 2020 election was free and fair is an often repeated and accepted lie that they continue to spread to this day, and for any educated person without Trump derangement syndrome, it is utterly laughable. I have already demonstrated how the biased coverage about Trump could easily be construed as election interference, and how the Russia hoax led to unsubstantiated claims and outright lies being spewed repeatedly by the legacy media, as well as two impeachment attempts during his first term, where a large mass of voters literally believed Russian President Vladimir Putin was blackmailing him. And I have pointed out how they changed the rules of how we have always voted because of the heightened propaganda about the pandemic. But the whole truth about that election is hardly limited to those two shams. Everyone knows conservative viewpoints were silenced on social media platforms, and the truth behind the Hunter Biden laptop story, which was suppressed and called fake news. The legacy media talking point, supported by our own government and a document signed by 51 former intelligence officers, was all Russian disinformation. Instead, as we now know since the laptop was used at the former president's son's own criminal court proceeding, this was all a lie, and the laptop actually was his all along. Reportedly, the FBI had the laptop in their possession for over a year before the election, and we still don't know why that was covered up. But I actually go one further, as I simply don't trust the results themselves. No, you won't find any information about voting machines or boxes of ballots being unloaded off trucks in the middle of election night in this video. Instead, I just present you with some cold, hard numbers. And although I am no mathematician, I simply can't swallow what I have found. The 2020 presidential election was basically decided by 3 states and less than 43,000 total votes. Most election deniers focus on Pennsylvania, basically because it took 4 days to determine the outcome, and ultimately was the state that proclaimed Biden as the president-elect. But Trump ended up losing it by over 88,000 votes. No, the 3 states that ultimately decided the election were Arizona, Georgia, and Wisconsin, where the margin of victory for Biden was between less than 0.25% to 0.75%. If Trump wins those states, it is a 269 tie, and the House re-elects him because of the Republicans' advantage in contingent House electors. When you take a closer look at the counties in those 3 states, you would be surprised at one particular finding. In the 12 counties that Biden won in those 3 states, where he collected more than 50,000 votes, specifically Maricopa and Pima in Arizona, Milwaukee and Dane in Wisconsin, and finally Chatham, Clayton, Cobb, DeKalb, Fulton, Gwinnett, Henry, and Richmond in Georgia, Biden not only beat Hillary Clinton in percentage of votes gotten in 2016 in every single one of them, but he also beat President Obama in both 2008 and 2012 in every single one of them. These were without a doubt the counties that ultimately decided the election. And we aren't talking about Biden getting more pure votes, which can easily be explained as every 4 years we increase our population, which makes that a pretty normal occurrence. No, we are talking about percentage of votes. To state the obvious, many of these counties have a large minority population, specifically when it comes to African Americans. Yet Biden beat Obama in every single one of them, both in 2012 and in 2008, when they were voting for their first black president in our nation's history. Every single county. And in case you were wondering, the next county on this list, Muskogee, also in Georgia, happened the exact same way. Sorry, but it doesn't take a wild conspiracy theorist to come to the conclusion there was likely some foul play here. Especially when I bring up the next topic where the Democrats involved themselves in what is quite possibly the biggest sham and scandal in our history. Yes, even bigger than Nixon and Watergate. Joe Biden, sharp as a tack. This is quite possibly the biggest scandal of the last century when it comes to the office of president, and we don't even have all the facts yet. The mainstream media worked hand in hand with the Democrat Party again and lied to the American people about Joe Biden's obvious cognitive state, and it could have began all the way back to 2019 before he even ran for office the first time. What was obvious is Biden was clearly unfit to be president as late as June 2024, when the whole world saw his debate with Trump. But when I say the media covered it up and claimed he was sharp as a tack, I am not exaggerating, as this little clip says it all on just how far they went.
But I undersold him when I said he was cogent. He's far beyond cogent. In fact, I think he's better than he's ever been. Intellectually, analytically, because he's been around for 50 years. And, you know, I don't know if people know this or not, Biden used to be a hothead. Sometimes that Irishman would get in front of the reasoning. Sometimes he would say things he didn't want to say. This is, and I don't really, you know what, I don't really care. Start your tape right now, because I'm about to tell you the truth. And F you if you can't handle the truth. This version of Biden, intellectually, analytically, is the best Biden ever. Not a close second. And I've known him for years. The Brzezinskis have known him for 50 years. If it weren't the truth, I wouldn't say it. And
This was a cover-up from beginning to end, and yes, despite what Jake Tapper will have you believe, the media was complicit. They claimed that all smaller media that reported on Biden's health and mental decline were crazy and right-wing conspiracy theorists, even calling the videos of his obvious cognitive decline, which saw him mumbling his words, not knowing where he was, and literally falling down repeatedly, as cheap fakes. Now that the election has been lost by the Democrats and Biden is no longer important to them, more and more stories from that same media are bringing light to the obvious cover-up at the White House during his presidency. But the media's part in it has left a lot to be desired when it comes to taking responsibility. In other words, it is now an attempt by the legacy media to cover up the actual cover-up. The bigger story, however, is who was running our country for those 4 years? Label me as skeptical that we will ever get the true answer to that question from this corrupt media, and if anyone, again, will be held accountable. This is a short list of ways the legacy media has blatantly lied or simply used misinformation to try and control the American people, and to a large degree divide us. It is a short list really when there are thousands of other examples I could have used in this video to show you how they do their endless manipulation. As far as when it comes to Trump, the reasoning always given is that he was an existential threat to democracy or to America. This is pretty rich when it comes to both counts. Democracy is laughable coming from a party that did everything I mentioned in this video and has basically thwarted the American voter in their last 3 presidential elections. Bernie Sanders was not given a fair chance against Hillary Clinton in 2016. No one was allowed really to oppose Biden in 2020, and they knew they were lying to the American people by trying to re-elect a walking corpse in this last election. When that was revealed to the world in the debate, they did a secret coup, avoided any primary, and put in Kamala Harris without any democratic process. The threat to America argument holds even less water when Trump repeatedly embraces an American First platform that focuses on the true citizens of the country over illegal immigrants, actual American workers, and at least the willingness to get us out of international conflicts so the focus can be at home. The counter-argument to this, from a brainwashed liberal, of course, would be January 6th. But the truth is, we haven't gotten the full truth about that so-called insurrection either. A later video of mine will tackle this lie as well. To sum everything up, and I say this to everyone, including the Democrats and anyone else out there who is against Goebbelization, is, quite honestly, we all should be marching to the Capitol and demanding an end to this. Peacefully, of course,